New normal big life.
To give it a try. There have been over 300 peer-reviewed studies done that all show the effectiveness of this really powerful tool. And the numbers are off the charts about how effective it is. It might feel uncomfortable because it is going to encourage you to engage with uncomfortable emotions. But that is the magic of it, because it will lead you through the other side of that and get you to a place of feeling much better.
Amid escalating mental health challenges, EFT tapping emerges as a potent self-help tool, blending acupressure and affirmations to ease anxiety and pain. Amy Vinca, shaped by her own emotional struggles, founded the Soar with Tapping app to make this technique accessible to anyone. With over 160 sessions, progress tracking, and user testimonials like, "This app has made my everyday life easier." It empowers app users to address root issues. Experts affirm its benefits, with studies showing significant reductions in post-traumatic stress, anxiety, and depression symptoms. Vince's journey inspires, proving EFT has transformative potential for all. And today we'll learn about EFT tapping with expert EFT tapping coach, Amy Vinca. Hi, friends. Welcome to the New Normal Big Life podcast. We bring you natural news and stories about nature that we hope will inspire you to get outside and adventure, along with a step-by-step plan to help you practice what you've learned and create your own new normal and live the biggest life you can dream. I'm your host, Antoinette Lee, the Wellness Warrior. Let's dive into today's transformational topic with Amy Vinca. In a world besieged by relentless stress and emotional turmoil, I imagine a simple technique that empowers individuals to reclaim their inner peace through mere fingertip pressure on the body. Emotional freedom techniques, or EFT, commonly known as tapping, emerges ancient acupressure principles with modern psychological insights to alleviate anxiety, depression, chronic pain, and more. This method involves gently tapping on specific meridian points while vocalizing affirmations, effectively disrupting negative thought patterns and restoring energetic balance. Research underscores its efficacy. A systematic review of clinical studies reveals that EFT significantly reduces symptoms of psychological distress, with participants experiencing lasting improvements after just a few sessions. Dr. Melissa Young, a functional medicine specialist with Cleveland Clinic, affirms we see the most evidence for its capacity for lowering anxiety, highlighting its comparability to cognitive behavioral therapy and managing depressive symptoms. Veterans grappling with post-traumatic stress have found peace with EFT, with one study noting that 80% no longer met post-traumatic stress disorder criteria after treatment. At the forefront of this transformative practice stands Amy Vinca, founder of the Soar with Tapping app. Amy Vinca has been a dedicated professional in the health and wellness industry for over 20 years. As a certified massage therapist, nutritional therapist, colon hydrotherapist, Reiki master, and tapping coach, she brings a wealth of expertise to her work. Since earning her certification as a tapping coach 16 years ago, Amy's witnessed profound transformations both in her own life and in the lives of her clients. She has even used tapping to heal herself from painful chronic medical conditions. As the founder of the Soar with Tapping app, Amy's on a mission to make the life-changing benefits of tapping accessible to people everywhere. She firmly believes that tapping is one of the most powerful and transformative healing tools available today. Amy, welcome to New Normal Big Life.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited about this topic because I have some experience with EFT tapping. So Can you describe your personal journey with EFT tapping, including what the pivotal moment was that led you from emotional struggles to becoming a certified coach?
I'd love to. I think it's important for me to say that I've always been curious about human behavior. always kind of comparing my behavior to that of somebody else and wondering why we have different responses to different situations. And I've been a seeker in that regard, like always wanting to be better, always wanting to try harder, that sort of thing. And I think that journey got elevated when I was diagnosed with breast cancer at the age of 31. And with no history of breast cancer in my family, it was really just came out of left field and was not something I was expecting. And, after the initial fears and treatment and surgery and stuff like that, I really got curious. I really looked at it like, okay, I'm biologically the same mostly as this person standing next to me. What is it about me that made me get breast cancer and not this person over here? And so I really started going down the path of nutrition and even spirituality. And I sought out Tony Robbins at the time. So I went to his events, and a friend introduced me to tapping at the event. And I quickly recognized it as a really powerful tool. I'm sure like you did, because you've had experience with it as well. So, but I had used it over the years with kind of limited success. Like sometimes it would fall really flat, and other times I would experience some really profound changes with it. And I didn't understand what the difference was. So about 7 years ago, I had been certified for probably 16, 17 years now. But 7 years ago, I was in kind of another crisis moment in my life where how it goes when everything is just crumbling and changing around you. My body was in pain a lot of the time. I was having anxiety attacks. I was depressed, and I was about to lose my job. Like everything was I was in an unhappy state in a lot of places in my life. And I started turning to tapping, but I did it a little differently this time, because normally I would focus on the symptoms I was experiencing, whether it was procrastination or anxiety, and it would help in the moment, but nothing changed long term with it. And so I started asking myself the questions that were helping me to get to what was underneath procrastination. Like, why exactly was I procrastinating? What would be so horrible if I achieved this goal that I say that I want, but I'm like stopped dead in my tracks and I'm paralyzed about moving forward with something. And then it occurred to me that I was afraid of failure. And then I thought, okay, well, what's so bad about failure? Like all the experts and really successful people out there say that you have to fail a lot in order to truly succeed. So I'm like, okay, so what would happen if I really failed something? And then the answer came that, well, it would confirm my greatest fears about myself, that there was something wrong with me, and that I was unworthy and deserving of having success or even, anything good in my life, abundance of any kind. And then I asked myself, well, why do I feel that way? And I got to the answer, which was my dad left when I was 4. And that was the question that I kept asking myself over and over again after he left was, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with, because as kids, we normally just point the finger at ourselves and assume that it's our fault if something around us has happened, and which is exactly what I did. But I lived the rest of my life with looking through the world with that lens. So when I started applying tapping to those root causes, to the trauma of my dad leaving, and to all the limiting beliefs and fears that were created out of that trauma, then I experienced really profound results, really, really huge stuff. It was like all of a sudden I could see that the sky was blue. And it was at that moment that I recognized tapping for the truly powerful tool that it is. And everything changed. I quit my job. I was going to lose it anyway, but started my own business with tapping, and then built the app so that I could bring it to as wide of an audience as possible.
Wow, that is an incredible personal journey into tapping.
Mm-hmm.
In your clinical experience as an EFT coach, what are some common challenges that your clients face, and how do you tailor sessions to address their root causes effectively?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think that the thing that I see most often, it's not exactly the type of trauma that people experience because, I mean, there are categories of trauma that a lot of people go through. But the most common response that people don't often recognize as a trauma response is anxiety and overwhelm. Because what happens in our body is that, our subconscious mind is constantly scanning the horizon for threats. And it's not doing it from a rational place. It's doing it from a really irrational, almost childlike place, because that's typically where we experience our trauma. And so anything that resembles the potential of experiencing the pain that they had with their trauma again, even in the most remote way, will cause people to slip into an anxious state. Their amygdala gets triggered, they go into fight or flight mode, and cortisol is rushed throughout our body. And nobody, like 99% of the time, nobody understands why or how they were triggered. They're just in this anxious state and they don't know what to do with it. And we've got a lot of tools and people out there helping people to manage the symptoms of anxiety, which EFT is a great tool for doing that because it tells the amygdala over and over again in our brain, de-escalate. De-escalate, de-escalate. It's okay to feel safe and calm about this. There is no immediate threat, and it's okay to relax in this moment. And when it's doing that, it is reducing cortisol in our bodies 43% faster than if we had done nothing else. It's lowering heart rate. It is lowering blood pressure. It is increasing immune response and increasing happiness levels. So there's a lot going on when we just start tapping on our acupressure points and talking about what it is we're experiencing.
So who typically benefits from EFT tapping? And are there specific demographics or conditions where it's most profound in the results?
I would say it's highly individualized, and I'll give a couple of examples of why that is so. For example, like somebody that experienced what I'll refer to as a big T trauma, a wartime event, a big car accident, a major illness in their body, physical or sexual assault, something along those lines, I would consider a big T trauma. And typically those events, the number of times that people have experienced those events are pretty small. And so working through those events with tapping, with hopefully a very skilled professional, because we don't want to re-traumatize somebody, and we take it extremely slow and be very sensitive about how we move forward with it. Those can clear and neutralize really quickly because it didn't happen a lot of times. And because people don't typically develop limiting beliefs around it, and if it didn't go on for like extended period of time, like decades or even longer, like it's really easy to release those things. Like in the matter of 2 to 3 sessions, like a sexual assault can be completely neutralized. I mean, which is remarkable, something that people get really affected by at such a deep level. It's remarkable that it can have that quick of an effect on somebody.
World events are constantly teaching everyone some very painful lessons. Without warning, everything we take for granted can suddenly fail. And if you're not prepared in advance, you really don't have a chance. The fact is, the modern world runs on a just-in-time supply schedule. Even the biggest grocery stores can carry only enough food for a few days' worth of normal shopping. So when disaster strikes and chaos ensues at your local stores, the odds are simply against you. If you don't have emergency food and gear stockpiled in advance, you will probably suffer. My partner, Ready Hour, is here to help you ahead of time. Ready Hour has a long history of providing calorie-rich, reliable, and delicious nourishment for life's unexpected situations, and critical emergency gear too. They're part of a family of companies that have served millions of people like you for decades. My family and I use Ready Hour products for camping, mountaineering, and disaster preparedness for 5 years now. They're not just reliable, they're also your affordable option too. Long-term survival food shouldn't break the bank. That's why they have great sales and payment options for you. It's your bridge to safety and survival when things just aren't normal anymore. So make your next decision your smartest decision. Be ready for tomorrow, today. Trust Ready Hour. Ready to shop? Use my affiliate link in the show description.
But complex trauma, little t trauma, which is something like having an angry parent. And so you always feel like you're walking on eggshells and trying to avoid them getting angry and having, some physical or even just emotional outburst. Or it could be if you were ignored by your parents. Maybe it's something as simple as they had to work 2 to 3 jobs in order to make sure that everybody had a roof over their heads and food on the table. But you as a child felt ignored and it went on for a long period of time. That's more of a complex trauma, which can create a lot of fears and a lot of limiting beliefs about who you are, which is much, much harder to really neutralize all of the effects of that. And it will take an extended period of time, but it will depend on how often you utilize tapping in order to achieve those results. So if you're working with a professional or even tapping on it like once every other week, it's going to take a long period of time. But if you were working on it, giving it like 2 hours a day for a week, you can move through it like that. So there's that aspect. So it really depends on what it is you want to work through. And then there is the type of person that is doing the tapping. If you have a lot of self-awareness and are able to verbalize your feelings and understand like what sadness feels like in your body and what anger feels like in your body, and be able to verbalize and express how that feels, then you're going to achieve faster results. If you have a little bit of a harder time with that, it's like a muscle that needs to be exercised and strengthened. And over time, you will get to the point where you can not only recognize what you're feeling, but verbalize it and release it really quickly. So yeah, there's a few items that come into play with it, but I have worked with children like 5 years old and she's released something really quickly. I've worked with teenagers and they release very quickly because they don't have an extended history of struggles in a certain area, typically. And adults take a little bit longer, but again, it depends on the person and what they're working on.
Before we cover the next topic in this episode, I want to introduce you to the adventure sports lifestyle with what I like to call a micro story about an adventure that I've had. The adventure sports lifestyle and my connection to nature, my deep connection to nature, is essential to my good health. So here's the story. Challenge by choice. That's what we like to say to people when we're introducing them to a new outdoor activity or sport. For example, if someone has never been camping and you're forcing them to go, whether it's your spouse or a child or someone who's visiting your home and you've arranged what you think is going to be a great and amazing adventure, they might not feel the same way. Some people really believe that they don't like the outdoors. And if you force them into a situation where they don't have a choice, then they're going into this experience with negative thoughts, negative energy, and possibly it could ruin their impression of the outdoors for many years to come, if not for the rest of their lives. So whenever I'm introducing someone new to the outdoors, always make it a challenge by choice. One of the ways that we do this with children at adventure camp As we tell them about the adventure, we give them all the information about safety protocols and how the adventure will run. And then we ask everyone who wants to participate and everyone who doesn't want to participate to separate into groups. While the people who don't want to be a part of this activity, we ask them to just watch and cheer on their fellow campers. What this does is while the watcher who does not want to participate sees other people enjoying the activity, being brave, trying new things, and having fun experiences, 99% of the time, they're going to tell a counselor, I want to try it now. I hope this inspires you to get outside in an adventure and that you'll offer someone that you're bringing along on an adventure the option to challenge by choice. Now back to the show where we're talking with Amy Vinca about EFT tapping. So you've talked about working with an EFT tapping coach, and I know that we're going to talk about an app in just a moment, but how will the potential client make the decision between working with an app and working with a coach? How do you make that decision for yourself?
Very, very good question. If somebody has trauma that they need to work through, I would always recommend working with a EFT professional, because while, like I said, there are different categories of traumas, each person's trauma and the effect that the trauma had on each person is so individualized. But there is a really distinct timeline of a trauma where multiple points along that timeline, there are going to be moments where there are feelings of shame, regret, guilt, or fear, all of the above sometimes, and they all need to be neutralized in order for the whole event to be neutralized. And so it takes somebody working with a coach to be able to recognize when those moments are, because if I was trying to work through my own trauma by myself, I have too many judgments and criticisms about how I responded to be able to be non-judgmental about those moments enough to recognize that that's something I need to tap on. So an outside person can have a really clear perspective on where the trigger points are and what needs to be worked through. The app is a really great support tool for everything that comes afterwards. So all of the fears that developed from trauma, all the limiting beliefs about maybe I'm stupid, or maybe I'm lazy, or, anything along those lines, or symptoms like I can't sleep at night, or I've got this anxiety, or I'm feeling depression, or I'm have massive cravings for food or alcohol or something along those lines. Those are everything that comes after trauma. And those are all symptoms of trauma. So always start with the trauma itself. And because it's like putting water on the coals of a fire, because if you're just working up at the top of the flames, it's not going to put that out, from the base, from the root. You have to pour water over the coals first, and then you can deal with all of the other things that are still simmering with fire.
So suppose a client wants to work with an EFT tapping coach, but their insurance carrier won't cover it, and they don't have the means to work with a coach out of pocket. However, let's suppose their insurance carrier says, well, I am covering your therapist sessions. Could a person maybe who wants to work with the Soar with Tapping app, which we'll talk about in a moment, could they bring the app to their therapist or social worker and say, I'd like to incorporate this technique on this app in our sessions? Would someone be open to that?
I do believe they would. And I think a lot more therapists are adopting this tool in their practice because it is so effective. But I do want to point out, you mentioned that you have a lot of veterans that are part of your listenership. And I do want to point out that there is a program, especially for veterans, where they can receive free EFT tapping sessions. And there have been some amazing results and studies done on how effective EFT is, particularly for veterans that have experienced PTSD and or resulting depression or anxiety or insomnia afterwards. There are really great results regarding that. And I just want to quickly, if I can, give you the name of that program so your listeners can hear it. It's called the Veteran Stress Project. And they offer free EFT coaching sessions for veterans and their families, which can be provided in person or via Zoom or something along those lines.
And how would a veteran access this program?
I would just search it on Google and find out, get a web page and contact them directly.
Oh, I meant, would they need a consult from their primary care physician? Is it
I don't know. That's a good question. They might have to have a diagnosis of PTSD in order to get the free sessions, but I have not done enough research to be able to answer that accurately. So if you are just below that but are still having symptoms, I would definitely reach out and see if they have a program that might be able to kind of catch you in there.
I'll spend some time doing some research, and then if I find out anything, it'll be in the show notes.
Okay, great.
So what can or how can someone wanting to use Soar with Tapping get your app?
Well, you can search for it on the Android or Google Play stores. Just search for Soar with Tapping, and Apple users, they can go to my website. Go to soarwithapping.com/podcast-special. And there they can find a code to input into the app once they download it to get 50% off of their first annual subscription.
Wow, that's an incredible savings.
Yeah.
I love it.
My biggest passion and mission in life is to give people access to this tool. Hopefully it's at an affordable price for most people, and there are different payment plans that you can choose from. But mostly, I just want to give people the opportunity to be able to heal themselves. I mean, nobody should have to suffer when this kind of stuff is available, you know?
So, Amy, what's set up like with the app? Some people are technology averse. They don't want to have yet another app that they have to learn. Tell us what the setup
I understand.
will be like.
So there is an onboarding process that will ask you, what is your experience level with tapping? And based on that experience level, it'll give you hopefully the corresponding amount of information to make it easy for you to get started. And then we'll take you through a tapping round right away. And what that means is that you'll choose from a list of things that you can work on, and you can say, I want to work on feeling calm in this moment. So we'll take you through a very quick 10-minute tapping round. There's an avatar that will show you with pointing dots where you need to be tapping on your body. And it will prompt you with exactly what to say. So you're just going to repeat everything the recording says and tap where the recording says to tap and where the picture is showing you to tap. And you just repeat everything that the recording says. Beforehand, you're going to give yourself a rating. Say, how anxious am I feeling on a scale from 0 to 10? And you say, maybe I'm at a 6 or whatever. So you record that. Then you do the tapping round, and then you record where you are afterwards. And that's it. It's a very, very simple approach, but there's a lot of magic that happens in there.
So I love this so much because when I was first introduced to tapping, it was through little cards that showed me where to tap. But also the therapist that I was working with would give me verbal instructions. And as someone with a brain injury, I would always think, oh, I'm taking enough notes. And then I'd get home and there were gaps in my notes and I wasn't quite sure if I was doing it right. And so it took a while to kind of get going with it. And I love how the Soar with Tapping app just makes it so seamless and so effortless because it shows you step by step. I love that so much.
Yeah. We tried to do it on a lot of different levels. So there's a visual cue and there's verbal cues to tell you where you need to tap. But there's also what I want to point out, there's a lot of videos on the app that will tell you and give you instructions for how to work through bigger topics like depression. Because while there's over 170 tapping scripts and meditations available on the app, if somebody walks into that situation with depression on their mind, they're not going to have any idea about where to start. And so there are a lot of videos that tell you how to approach things like anxiety or depression or procrastination or addiction, weight loss, anything along those lines.
Wow, those are some big ones. That's amazing.
Yeah, because it's hard to figure out where to go with things like that. And there is a definite order, like we talked about earlier. Let's work on those foundational fears that were created out of trauma first, because then it's going to make everything else you work on afterwards that much more effective and successful.
Well, I know that there are some end user specific pieces of data that someone might enter, like their emotional insights or progress metrics. How is that protected, handled? How is it stored? And tell us a little bit about privacy. It doesn't seem like you collect anything really from the app user, but it just solidify what it is that you're collecting, how it's handled, and what they can expect.
Okay. Yes. We don't keep anything. We don't capture any data other than your email address. The one thing that we do kind of keep track of is the amount of time that you've been on the app, how many numbers you have gone down on the scale when you go through a tapping round, and basically how many tapping rounds you've done. We only do that so that you have a gauge and can see how much time you've invested and how much progress you've actually made, because it's really hard to quantify the emotional journey. And we need to find ways to celebrate these things. Otherwise, we get in our own way, and that critical voice comes in and tells us that we're not enough again. So we need to be able to look back and see, oh, I have made some progress in this area. But other than that, we don't capture a thing. There are journaling functions on there, but we're not tracking that. We're not, keeping it in any way, shape, or form. It is strictly for you, and we're not going to use it ever.
So it sounds like anything that the app user might enter into the app for their own notes are kept and stored on their own phone, and nothing is being sent to a server somewhere.
That's correct. Yes.
What else do you want listeners to know? I will, of course, drop all the links to how to get the app and the discounts in the show description. But is there anything else you want us to leave us with? And before you go, I'd also like to know, how could someone who wanted to work with you directly on a one-on-one basis, with or without the app, how could they connect with you?
Absolutely. And I do have some spots available for individual clients. They can always email me, amy@soarwithtapping.com. But I think the one thing that I want to just encourage people to do is to just try it. To be honest, it looks silly when you first get started. It feels silly. It feels like, how could this possibly be the powerful tool that people are talking about? And the truth is, you have to experience it in order to be able to judge whether or not it is a good tool for you. And it's not for everybody. But I just encourage you to give it a try. There have been over 300 peer-reviewed studies done that all show the effectiveness of this really powerful tool. And the numbers are off the charts about how effective it is. And so I just encourage people to suspend judgment, give it a try, It might feel uncomfortable because it is going to encourage you to engage with uncomfortable emotions. But that is the magic of it, because it will lead you through to the other side of that and get you to a place of feeling much better, rather than just slapping on kind of a cursory type of happy thought on top of bad feelings. It will actually move you through the bad feelings and get you to the other side feeling so much relief.
And that's where the healing is. Thank you so much, Amy, for joining us. This has been very insightful.
Oh, I'm so happy I was able to do this with you. Thank you for having me.
Magnesium, an unsung hero, fuels over 300 bodily reactions, from heart health to stress relief. Magnesium expert Natalie Girado, founder of Rooted In, found freedom from anxiety, insomnia, and pain through topical magnesium. It transformed my life, she says, inspiring her mission to share this mineral's power. Cardiologist Dr. Jack Wolfson calls magnesium essential for heart health, helping regulate rhythms, blood sugar, and reduce inflammation. Up to 80% of people may be deficient, facing issues like depression, migraines, insomnia, or muscle cramps. For women over 40, magnesium eases menopause symptoms, boosts energy, and supports bones. Choosing the correct type of magnesium matters. Real stories, Natalie's and mine, highlight its impact. After interviewing magnesium expert Natalie Girado, I became a customer. I was already a magnesium fan, having been told by 2 cardiologists to take magnesium for a minor heart arrhythmia. Natalie explains it best in the Magnesium, the Mineral Transforming Lives episode of New Normal Big Life, number 4 in Alternative Health on Apple Podcast. Listen wherever you get your podcasts. Fast forward after the interview, I bought the Rooted In bundle for sleep, tranquility, and pain relief. As a spine injury survivor with several other health challenges, I'm in constant pain. However, I don't take any pain medication. Rooted In is now one more source that nature provided to give our bodies what it needs when it needs it. You can find magnesium in natural bodies of water like lakes and rivers and in soil. But modern farming practices have stripped magnesium out of the soil and our food. That's why today, Rooted In's rest, relief, and tranquility are part of our afternoon and nightly sleep routine. My guy who did 2 tours kicking indoors in Iraq with the Marines now has no trouble falling asleep. I no longer have to take melatonin before bedtime to fall asleep. So after I became a customer and saw how well these products worked, I applied to become an affiliate. I've been sharing the secrets of Rooted In with friends and family from age 38 to 68, and everyone has gotten amazing results within minutes of applying the cream. Do something naturally good for yourself. Get Rooted In. Click my affiliate link in the episode description to shop now.